This is Momentum, a crowd insights tool for mobility management.
So we're going to go over the benefits, the execution of how we built it, a quick demonstration, and then we're going to talk about the applications. So really what we see Momentum as is it's a really good heat map of location data, real time, as well as extrapolating it. And so a really quick way that we could use it is with COVID-19. But there's tons of applications that you can do with crowd insights.
Yeah, it's also a really big part. We wanted to use existing infrastructure. We don't want to add expensive camera equipment just to be able to get a generate heat map of an area. So we can tap into existing security cameras that aren't that great and very limited to extrapolate data off of that and generate predictive models from that limited data set.
Yeah, and another advantage of this is that we don't have to worry about people's privacy being taken away, because instead of using on their person data such as tracking from their phone, and usually are able to link their location data to the actual person, we're simply just going to get their blog or their basic frame and just track it over time. So there's no actual privacy with the actual person.
So here's a quick demo of how we utilize that data and present it in a little visual front end. So we made a little timeline where we created this sort of predictive data, and then we drew vectors on top of that. So not only do we know where people are at a certain time, we could also guess where that crowd would move and make these sort of predictive estimations of crowd behavior over time. And we're able to put that into a web app and have a little timeline so we can scrub through and watch the way the crowd moves and watch how that contrasts with the sort of predictions that we make.
Yeah, and we made it really easy to add sources. So it's as easy as finding a camera, getting the IP address or whatever stream from it, and just putting it through our system. So we make it really easy to estimate, as he said, the abnormality of a crowd flow.
So yeah, like we said, we want to create this sort of framework, right, where we have the system where you can feed in data, and the more data you get, the smarter it gets. But even with limited data, we can still make useful predictions and still have useful insights.
Yeah, and so instead of existing solutions right now being reactive, we're actually going to be predictive. So we can analyze crowd movements, especially with the direction, as before mentioned, and so we can actually use that to classify hotspots and kind of ping issues before it even happens.
So like in a crowd redirection scenario where there's a hotspot, instead of reacting to that hotspot after there's too many people, we actually guess when there might be more people in the area and can react to that beforehand instead of before that problem even arises.
Another application that we see right now, especially, is again COVID-19. Because we can show population travelability as well as crowd density, so we can tell people who are higher risk to maybe avoid this area, and we can also enable public health officials to pinpoint areas where they need to give more education, more help in terms of resources and stuff like that. So it's very useful in just terms of public health management.
Okay, so building Momentum, we utilize Google Video Intelligence to be able to actually track individual objects over their entire existence in a certain scene. So not only could we count where people were, how many people were in a certain area, we could actually track their movement across that scene, and we can use their individual movement to draw broader conclusions about the movement of the crowd as a whole. So building Momentum, we used Google Cloud Video Intelligence to persistently track objects across a certain scene, and we were able to analyze the sort of overall motion and create sort of predictive models based off of that we fed into the visualization.
So to build a visualization, we used Vue.js, and what it did is it took in the data and it would build a heat map based on all the points at a current position, and then we also plotted a arrow basically to show the vector of each individual position, and so we were able to basically extrapolate the predicted direction of movement by using the average movement of the data. And so because we combine all these video feeds, we're able to create really rich analysis, and so we actually simulate an airport, and so we'll show in the next demonstration how officials and even employees might be able to use this information to enhance the workflow of the airport as well as the flyers.
Some possible applications of how we can use Momentum in the real world. A good example is crowd control and efficiency, right? Existing solutions can tell you when something has gone wrong, when there's too many people in a certain area, and we need to redirect people. Momentum can allow us to predict that behavior, and when there's abnormal behavior, something odd is happening, we can actually understand that automatically and sort of respond to that beforehand.
Yeah. Another potential application is helping accessibility, particularly visually impaired people or people who have mobility issues. So if you're visually impaired, it's kind of hard to walk when there's a lot of people around you because you might bump into them. You can't really hear well. So we can actually use like text to speech and basically map a better way of navigating to wherever they want to go, so they don't have to run into too many people. Same thing with mobility issues. If people are using wheelchairs or stuff like that, instead of having to go through people traffic or dangerous areas, they can actually we can again find the best route for them to go that will be the most mobile friendly for them.
Momentum can also be used as a valuable tool for companies that allow them to gain insights about their customers and their behaviors of their customers to better tailor their services and better tailor their institutions for those customers.
Momentum is a really powerful tool for crowd analysis, and we're really excited to see the applications of what you can do with Momentum.
Thank you.
That was awkward, but it's
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
We can cut the last thank you out if we need to.
Yeah.